Hello and welcome to the Blue Collar Wealth Club podcast. I am your host, Jerry Garcia. Today we have a special guest. We have David Alemian on. He's going to talk to us a lot about attracting talent for your business as well as retaining top talent. He's kind of the expert in this process, in this category. So we're going to go ahead and take it away. David, tell us what you do.
Well, thank you for having me, Jerry. I've been in the retirement planning business for over 29 years. And 12 years ago, I started down this journey about attracting and retaining talent. And because there's a shortage of skilled labor out there. I mean, this is across all industries. I mean, there aren't enough doctors and nurses and accountants and lawyers. There aren't enough carpenters, electricians, and plumbers. I mean, you name it. If it requires skills, we're coming up short. It's a big problem. And this problem is not going away. Not in our lifetime, anyway. Why? Because it's related to the size of the generations. You know, the greatest generation came back from World War II. They got jobs, they married their sweethearts, and they started having babies. And they had a lot of them. In the 50s and 60s, the baby boomers, they swelled the population. In the 70s and 80s, they flooded the workforce. I mean, every employer enjoyed a full roster of employees. You know, back then, just to get a job, you needed to know somebody on the inside of the company who could then recommend you to the personnel department, now called HR. And once people got into a company, they stayed there until retirement. I mean, there was almost no turnover. Either somebody dropped dead on the job or they stayed there till retirement. So, what happened? 1978 happened. Congress thought that Americans aren't saving enough of their own money. You know, they should be saving some of their money. You know, they got their pensions, they got their Social Security, but that's a two-legged stool. They should have a three-legged stool. So they gave them a tax incentive, and they called it the 401k. Right?
Absolutely.
Well, Wall Street saw an opportunity, and they went about selling these things to the employers. They said, hey, give these baby boomers, these new kids, give them this 401k thing, and then you get rid of those pensions. The employers said, wow, this is great. We don't have to fund these pensions anymore. And the baby boomers, they bought it like a school of fish, hook, line, and sinker. And they said, hey, this is great. We don't have to stay with the same company like our parents did. If we don't like it, we can take our little 401k with us and off we go. Here we are almost 50 years later. Both groups shot themselves in the foot. Why? Because almost no one can afford to retire, and turnover has skyrocketed to become the biggest hidden cost that a company has. Now, I'll come back to that. So, here I was about 12 years ago looking at the shortage of skilled labor. And I'm a problem solver. And having sat with countless people who couldn't afford to retire, and I don't care how much money they made. Why? Because most people live a lifestyle equivalent to their income. The more they make, the more they spend. They hop from one employer to another for more money. Do they put any of it away for their retirement? No, they buy more lifestyle. Or even still, a signing bonus. I mean, 5, 6, 7 years ago, did you ever hear of a signing bonus? No. Well, companies are desperate. They're desperate for bodies. You know, think about this. Let's say you have a plumbing company and you've got, 4 or 5 trucks. Do you know what it costs that plumbing company to have one of those trucks sitting in the yard because they don't have somebody to take it out on service calls? And plumbing, it's unbelievable. You know, somebody calls a plumber, it's usually they have an emergency and they need somebody now. And if you don't have somebody, they're hanging up the phone and they're they're calling the next one. Which means it's costing that employer, that business owner money. right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And here's the thing here's the thing. The labor market favors the employee. Why? There aren't enough of them to go around, right? So they're hopping from job to job because people are throwing money at them. What a lot of employers don't realize is the cost to replace someone with skills is more than double their salary. It's 213% of salary, to be precise. Ouch. And the average U.S. worker changes jobs every 4.1 years. Now, some a little quicker, some a little longer, but on average, it's 4.1 years. And the Labor Department knows it. Why? Because you have to fill out the tax forms every time you get a new job. So that statistic is pretty accurate. So, for example, some of your listeners, maybe they buy a pickup truck. And maybe that pickup truck is going to last 10 years of usefulness before they're going to need another one. And let's say that pickup truck costs, just for this conversation, let's say it costs $50,000. Well, and it's going to last 10 years. That means over that 10-year period, roughly, generally speaking, that truck costs $5,000 a year. Make sense?
Yep.
Right. So, if turnover, meaning, losing people and having to replace them, is 213% of whatever you're paying them, and it happens every 4.1 years, you want to know, because business owners need to know their costs. How much is that really costing me over the long run a year? Well, if we take 213% and divide it by 4.1, it gives us 53%. That means on an annual basis, turnover for all of your skilled labor is going to be about 53% more than everything else that employee costs. Because it's not just their hourly wage or their salary, it's also their health benefits and their life benefit, or whatever benefits, the disability and all that stuff. On top of that, add another 53%. So if you want to know where your profit's going, that's where it's going. And here's one more piece. That turnover cost, most of it is not deductible. Because built into that cost is lost production, training, all of these things, right? Say you got a superstar salesperson. She walks out the door, and all of a sudden now you got to find somebody else who's good, and as we all know, superstar salespeople don't grow on trees. How much did those lost sales cost? And it's not something you can deduct. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You're talking about, like you said, you're talking about not just the cost to onboard them, the cost of benefits. You're talking about, the time lost in those sales meetings, the opportunity cost.
Yeah. And one more piece. You hire somebody, I don't care whether a salesperson, an electrician, or a plumber, or a carpenter, they don't always work out, right? They might say, oh, here's my resume, and I did this, and I did that, and great. You hire them. And all of a sudden, 6 weeks later, you're scratching your head wondering, why did I hire this person? And you got to make another change. So where are you 6 weeks later? Are you paying them? You've been training them, all that for a month and a half. And you're back at square one, starting all over again. All of this contributes to the cost of turnover. Here's the thing about turnover. You don't get anything for it, right? If I spend $50,000 on a truck, what did I get? I got a truck. But the cost of replacing somebody, what did I get? I got nothing. Before, I had somebody doing a job. There was a little turnover. What do I have next? I got somebody else doing the same job. The only thing that changed was their name and their face.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's basically money that gets burnt up. So, what do we do about this?
Exactly. That was going to be my exact question.
change of thinking. In other words, whenever you do anything, you ask, what's in it for me? I mean, that's what everybody does naturally, right?
Human nature.
I mean, people tuning into this podcast, they're going to ask before they listen to it, well, what's in it for me? Oh, I might learn about turnover or whatever it is that the title of that particular podcast is. Yeah. Okay. So employers, they decide they want to hire somebody, they're saying like, what's in it for me? In other words, what's this guy going to do for me? What's this gal going to do for me? Why should I hire them? What they have to also understand is the person on the other side of that table, the candidate, they're asking, what's in it for me? I got 5 other offers over here. Why should I come work for you? Right? Here's another piece. The employees that you have, every day, you have to answer that question for them. What's in it for them to stay with you? Because without something that holds them in place, they got nothing to lose by leaving and everything to gain, because the guy down the street, the competition, is desperate for bodies. So he's throwing signing bonuses and higher pay and all these things at that person. And here's the thing about higher pay. It should be competitive, absolutely. But by just throwing money at people, like more than they really deserve, you will lose that game every time. And the reason is there's always somebody else who comes along who needs somebody even more, who's even more desperate and will throw even more money. So what do? We look at what they want. And it's got to be something that they can't get anywhere else, that they really want. And if they leave, they lose it. So now you're giving something big for them to lose by leaving.
Sure, back in alignment with what pensions used to be, right?
Exactly. That's why, here's the thing about pensions. Back then, when they had pensions, there was a bond. There was trust between employer and employee. The employee stayed because they saw their financial future down the road, right? Because at the end of the rainbow, at the end of everything, people want to know that there's something there. They want a future of financial security for themselves and their spouse.
Absolutely.
And employers, back then, they were conscious of this. So they would promote from within. I remember when I was young, and there were companies that had pensions. And I said, well, we promote from within. I'm like, why? Can't I come in and step in that job? They go, no, you're going to start down here, and you work your way up. You see, when they do that, you start out at a company, and you rise up to the top of that profession, but it's in a silo. It's within that company. You're still getting raises, you're still getting more pay, you're still going up in title or whatever it is. You're rising up in your profession. The only difference is it's with the same company, not with this company to this company, this company, this company. And in exchange, you got to retire and live your life, right? And not have financial worries of what's going. Because here's the thing, there are more people today working well into their retirement years than ever before. Why? They can't afford to retire.
Right.
The bills keep coming and they go up because of inflation. And what you have to do is replace that income. And they can't. So then what happens? People become semi-retired. No such thing. You're either retired or you're not.
Right.
Semi-retired means your body, your mind is saying you need to slow down. You need to cut back on your hours. So they put a nice name on it and call it semi-retired.
Right.
So what do? Here's what I do for my clients. I create supplemental employee retirement plans. And this isn't like a 401k or any of that stuff that those government plans that clearly don't work. You know, the average 401k or IRA in this country runs out of money in 12 to 14 years. And that was back before before inflation went through the roof. Now they run out of money even quicker.
Sure.
This plan, we can literally duplicate that person's income during that they have in their working years and have it continue throughout retirement, and it's for life. They absolutely can't outlive it. They can't spend it all. It's impossible because of the way that it's structured. Pretty nice. So, what does that do? That gives the employee, they see their future there. They're happier, they're stressed. His life. People grow up, you know, they're living with their parents. Maybe they go to school, maybe they don't go to school, but at some point they move out of the house. They get into an apartment. And they maybe get into a relationship. And they move, and maybe they get married, whatever. Some do, some don't. But then they buy a condo. And then they go from that condo to a house. And they have kids. Anybody with kids knows kids are expensive. Right? They buy cars. They take vacations. You know, in some cases they join country clubs. They do all these things. After a while, they have a wonderful lifestyle. Very little savings. So, late 20s, early 30s, they start to wake up. It's like, wow, I've been in the workforce for 10 years. I got nothing saved. So they keep working. And then a few years later, it's like, I've been in the workforce 15 years. I got nothing saved. I got all this stuff. How on earth am I ever going to be able to stop working in the next 20 or 25 years and maintain this lifestyle? Can't do it. Then they have kids. Now, I've done retirement planning for 29 years. A common question I get from people is, should I save for retirement or my kids' college education? Which do I do? Right? Because here's the pillow talk. Honey, I don't care what I have to do, but we're not going to burden our kids with the cost of a college education. We're going to pay for it. I don't care if we have to mortgage the house, cash in the 401k. Our kids are going to school, and when they go there, they're going to be studying. And I'm going to work until I drop dead. That's not a good thought to have. Right?
Right, yeah.
And then what happens? They talk about this when they first start having kids. But most of them, they don't start planning for it, paying for college, till the kid's a junior or senior in high school. And now it's way too late. Oh, man. And some will buy what's called a 529 college savings plan. Biggest mistake they could do. Why? Because that money is in the stock market. Sure. What happens when the kids are about getting ready to fill out those applications and the stock market takes a huge dip? Wow. You've been scrimping and saving as much as you can to put into that thing, and it just went up in smoke because the stock market went down. Now you're trying to figure out how to get the kid into college. Ouch. Much better ways to do that. So, back to supplemental employee retirement plans. It has a lot of benefits, and the employer pays for it. But here's the cool thing. They already have a turnover cost, on average, of about 53% of that person's wages or salary a year. So the way we design this is we're going to take a portion of it and put it into this supplemental employee retirement plan. But the employer is going to own it. He's not just going to give it to the employee. The employer will own it they will always own it. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this 53% cost, and we're not only going to make it go away, we're going to do something better. We're going to turn it into a growing and compounding asset on the company's books. How cool is that? So, we're going to take a portion of this. And how much is it? Depends on the individual and so on. And that's a formula that we work out with our clients. No big deal. But it always makes sense. So, it's going to grow and it's going to compound. What if, now there's 4 levels of protection for the employer. This, I want your listeners to hear. This is key. There is no way that the employer doesn't recover their money. 100% of the time, the way this plan is structured, they always recover their investment in the employee. And there's 4 levels of protection. Here's what I mean. We're going to put this money into a vehicle, and it's going to grow and it's going to compound. Well, what if the employee decides, and there's an agreement. In other words, nothing's free, and this isn't a fairy tale. In exchange for this wonderful benefit, the employee agrees to stay with the company. It's like, honey, there's this job here, and they're gonna create a retirement plan for us, and we'll be okay when it's time to retire. Isn't that nice? Not only will that employee not quit, their spouse won't let them quit. It's like, hang in there, honey. Our future is right there. So, what if the employee decides to quit? And this commitment, it could be for 5 years. It could be till retirement. It could be anything in between. And there's a written contract that the employee and the employer sign. Great. What if the employee fails to live up to their agreement and they leave? They walk away empty-handed, and the investment the employer made in that employee stays with the business. What if that employee, becomes very, very sick? Maybe they got cancer, or they had a stroke. 2 things happen every 40 seconds. In this country, somebody has a stroke, and somebody has a heart attack. What if something like that happened, or they have cancer, or any one of a whole number of covered medical events? There's a provision built in this that provides money for the employer to pay for and bring in a temporary replacement employee to take up the slack while that employee is home recovering, and can provide the employee with income while they're home recovering. In other words, health insurance just pays our medical benefits, and it doesn't even pay all of them in a lot of cases. It certainly doesn't put food on the table. It doesn't buy groceries. It doesn't pay the mortgage or the rent to make the car payment. This will. So the employee stays home, recovers, stress-free, comes back to work. We move forward. What if the employee drops dead mid-career? Not everybody gets to live to a ripe old age. There's a provision in this plan that provides a death benefit to the employer to recover their investment in the employee. And the balance, because it's a big death benefit, goes to that employee's family and protects the family. And you know something? Life insurance is at an all-time low. And it's the owning of life insurance. Most people they don't have it. This provides them something that they wouldn't have had. And if they do have it, it provides them even more. Because you can never have enough to really protect your family. Okay. So, in other words, now the employer recovers their investment and protects the employee. What if the employee stays? What if they stay all the way to retirement? Whatever the agreement is. This plan creates an income stream that goes to the employer. The employer deducts a portion of it. It might be 30%, it might be 20%, depending on how we structure it. And the balance, which, as I said, can be made big enough to be equal to or greater than their working year's income. It isn't always made that big, but it can be. It goes to the employee, and it's for life. The employer then recovers their investment over time. It might take, depending again how we structure the plan, between 10 and 15 years to do that recovery. That's okay. Then then once they've recovered their investment, the rest of that money, all of it, goes to the employee and bumps up their income halfway through retirement. They stay ahead of inflation. At the end of the day, everybody wins. The employer has a great employee for as long as they want to be on board, and the employee has true financial security in their future. Pretty nice. One more piece. A lot of your listeners and viewers, they view the eventual sale of their business as their retirement plan, or part of their retirement plan. The problem is they almost never get the amount of money that they hoped they'd get for the sale of their business. Why? Because you have two parties that are at opposing sides. You have a seller who wants, the business owner who wants a price up here, and you have a buyer who wants it as low as he can get it. Well, the business brokers or analysts, they say, well, the company's worth X amount of dollars, whatever it is. And the buyer says, well, I know what they say it's worth, but I'm not going to give you that much. I'm taking all the risk here. I'll give you about, 60% of what you're asking, whatever that number might be. 50%, who knows? And the buyer says, why would you even offer me something that low? And the seller says that rather. The buyer says, because I'm taking all the risk. See your key employees? They're the ones who who helped you build the company. What happens if one of them, or all of them for that matter, walks out the door as soon as you hand me the keys to this business? And the seller can now say, our price is X, and it stays there. Because you see these key employees, none of them are going anywhere for the next 10, 12, 15 years, whatever the case may be. Because they're part of this special retirement benefit that we have for them. Our price is X, and that's where it stays. What did we just do? We preserved and enhanced the value of that company.
Pretty awesome. You're speaking my language, man. Keeping the value of a company high, creating wins on both sides for employers and employees. So explain to me, if they're, let's say you set this term to 10 years. So if the employee meets that 10-year standard, then if they leave, they're still fine. They're vested in that retirement plan, and they take advantage whenever they retire.
According to the agreement, yes. They could also, let's say they stay for 10 years. And let's say the agreement was for 10 years. And let's say the employer was, 30 years old. Maybe they're 40, whatever it is. 10 years, you blink twice and 10 years goes by. The employee could choose to leave, or they could choose to stay and make another agreement. In other words, the agreement went for 10 years, and I'm great with that. I tell you what, I'm happy here because I like what we've done. I'll stay, and what I want you to do is continue funding this thing. And as long as I stay, you continue to fund it. Or I'll stay until retirement. In other words, you can change the agreement so that the employee wants to stay. And that's a good thing, because that when they're younger, it doesn't commit the employee for life. Some will want to. But if the employee gets committed but the longer that employee is there, the more money can go into that plan, because we've eliminated the turnover cost. So there's more funds to go into that thing. And maybe, in other words, it's flexible. It's very flexible. You can build it any way you want, and you can change it as long as everybody agrees and wants to participate to suit that particular situation.
No, that's great. I think it's awesome to be able to provide that same sort of an old style seeming like pension, create that sort of dynamic where everyone's on the same page, right? Employees want to stay longer. Employers are happy to have their guys, long term. Does it provide any sort of, any sort of incentive for the employer to keep their employees? Like what happens if the employer wants to terminate that relationship, at 9 years before they've reached their
Good question.
period?
Good question. Well, two things. Let's back up. You refer to it as sort of like a pension. There's one more piece that makes it better than a pension. A pension for the employer is a liability because they're committed to paying for this thing for life. What if that person lives to a ripe old age, right? It could cost a lot of money. The way this is built is coming from the plan, and the employer isn't on the hook. The plan is designed to generate that lifetime income. Okay, but what if the employee decides they want to leave in was that the question, if they want to leave in year 9, or you want to get rid of the employee in year 9?
Wants to get rid of him in year 9.
They could do that. They just come to a simple agreement. As far as they could buy out the extra year, it's not that much. They could do that. Or they could just say, look, we're done. And you get to leave and you get to take this plan with you. So, they could do that as well. Whichever works out best for everyone. But there's always a way to do this. Now, why would they want the employee to leave? Well, it could be any one of a couple of reasons. One, maybe that employee, they used to be really good, and now maybe something outside of business causes them to have a bad attitude. That can happen. People go through a divorce or whatever, and it can affect their behavior and their whole personality, whatever it is. You can build into this agreement that the employee must maintain certain standards. In other words, just because you have this agreement doesn't mean no matter what that employee does, you can't fire them, right? They have to maintain certain standards. So that you let the lawyers put in the language that protects the employer. Or maybe the business owner wants to sell the business. Well, they build this into the price of the business, and that ties and as I was saying before, how it enhances the value of the company. So there are very few cases where that the employer would want to get rid of an employee, and usually would be because the employee used to be good, and then they develop some type of attitude or problem or something along those lines. And there's a way that you can fix that with just language in the policy that basically protects everybody, as long as the employee is behaving. That make sense?
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
No, it's great. It's definitely an interesting concept. Not something I've ever heard before. Glad you kind of shared that with us. I think there's a lot of value in what you're talking about. So if somebody's interested in learning more about this, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Go to my website, davidalemian.com. And there you can get all my contact information. You can get more information about me. And then you can schedule a call with me and we can have a discovery call. And what I can do during that call is show you how this could be a good fit for you and what it could look like for their company. Because every one of these plan designs is a little bit different. It's designed specifically for each individual business. And it doesn't matter if you have one employee or 100 employees or 500 employees. We can design something for them. Here's one more piece I want to leave with your listeners. And that's this. Your most valuable asset are your key employees. And when you lose one of them, one comes in and says, I'm done at the end of the week, or I'm done today. Not professional, but some people do it. It becomes sometimes instant chaos. It's disruptive. It's one of the things that keeps people up at night. And one more piece. It's your most valuable asset So what you need to do is do what you would do to protect any asset. For example, you have car insurance. Why? Because you got financial liability if you have an accident. You have homeowners insurance. You have health insurance. Because these are valuable things that you need to protect. Without a plan like this, you have no security. Because the value of your company, your business, your ability to service your customers and earn a living for yourself and your family and everybody else depends on the whims of your employees. So why not draw them in, hold them in place, and one more piece. You show them how much you value them. And people will work so much harder for an employer when they feel valued.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always going to be better when, every side has a win on something like this. And I think it's great that there's an opportunity there to provide some value for your employees, but also to create some peace of mind for yourself. Like you said, saving yourself the cost of that turnover, providing them with a benefit that's unique, compared to most companies, and really can do a lot for both sides. So I think that's excellent. Well,
you're absolutely correct,
David.
Jerry.
I'd like to kind of leave with just one more question that I like to ask. What is a great book recommendation that you have for our listeners?
Oh, I got two if I can give them to you.
Absolutely.
One is the biography of Elon Musk. It's on Audible. I listen to a lot of books on audiobooks. The book is simply titled Elon Musk, and it's by Walter Isaacson. And one of the things that makes it so wonderful to listen to is we see Elon Musk in the news almost daily. And it's really fascinating to see where he came from, how he built Tesla, how he built rockets and spaceships, and where he came from. And it's an amazing listen. The second one is called Be Useful by Arnold Schwarzenegger. And not only did he write it, he also narrates it. So if you want to learn more about Elon Musk, it's a great book to listen to. And if you're a fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's another great book to listen to.
Fantastic. Well, really appreciate you taking the time, David. A lot of great stuff. I'm sure there'll be some people reaching out, hopefully, to ask more about this. I think it's a very interesting concept and something I'm definitely interested in learning more about. So we really appreciate you taking the time to come on, and hopefully we can maybe have you on again down the line and teach us a little bit more about what you're talking about.
Well, thank you, Jerry. I'd love to come back, and thank you for having me today.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and we will catch you next time on the Blue Collar Wealth Club podcast.